Assignment Discovery is about to take a plunge into the stinky world of elements known as the halogens.
First, we'll discover the common features of a useful group of elements in exploring the halogens.
Then we'll book an appointment to see how to care for our pearly whites in Fluorine, the painless dentist.
Next, we'll trace the sanitation of drinking water in Chlorine, cleansing drinking water.
Then we'll see how the pungent properties of one element help protect us from a deadly foe in Bromine, fighting fire.
And finally, we'll take a look at how chlorine works inside our own bodies in Digestion, the acid test.
A toxic group that protects lives and property, coming up next.
As you watch the first half of this program, keep these questions in mind.
What properties do the halogens share?
What makes the halogen so reactive?
The halogens are one of the most reactive groups on the periodic table, and they are found in many compounds that we use every day.
What are some common uses of the halogens?
Iodine is a halogen that's used in antiseptics.
Chlorine is a halogen that is used in pools, basically to clean a pool from bacteria.
Fluorine helps, I know that they use it for teeth, like they always have it in water a lot of times, and it helps like take care of your gums and teeth.
The halogens form the seventh group in the periodic table, located just before the inert noble gases. The halogens are the most toxic and reactive of the non-metal elements. Each halogen has a distinctive color, getting darker as you move down the group. They are also poor conductors and have low melting and boiling points. Fluorine is a highly toxic pale yellow gas. It is the most electronegative and reactive of all the elements in the periodic table, and can even form compounds with the noble gases. Because of its immense reactivity, it is difficult to isolate and store in its pure form. Chlorine is a yellowish-green gas that combines with nearly all elements. We use chlorine's high water solubility to our advantage by adding it to drinking water to kill harmful bacteria. Bromine is the only non-metallic element that is a liquid at room temperature. It is isolated from seawater for industrial use. It is a brown, noxious, and heavy liquid that is highly corrosive to human flesh, causing sores when exposed to skin. Iodine is a shiny bluish-black solid. Heating iodine to just over room temperature causes it to spontaneously sublime, meaning that it changes directly from a solid into a gas. Iodine readily reacts with most elements in the periodic table, but it will be displaced from its compounds by any of the lighter and more reactive halogens. Astatine is the only radioactive element of the halogen group. The longest half-life recorded for this element is just over 8 hours. Astatine has a metallic appearance and is semi-metallic in nature. The halogens are typical nonmetals with relatively low melting and boiling points. The melting and boiling points increase steadily going down the group. Fluorine and chlorine are gases at room temperature. Bromine is a reddish-brown liquid. And iodine and astatine are solids. Halogens readily combine with hydrogen to form hydrogen halides. These covalent compounds quickly dissolve in water to form extremely strong acids. Hydrogen fluoride is used to strip solid gold from circuit boards. The human body uses the super strength of hydrochloric acid to break down anything in the stomach. Looking at the periodic table can help explain the reactivity of the halogens. Here, the elements are listed in order of their atomic number, which represents the number of protons in an element's nucleus. In its normal, or ground state, this nucleus is also surrounded by an equal number of electrons. And as the atomic number increases, so does the size and mass of the atoms. In the periodic table, each horizontal line is called a period, and it represents the number of electron shells normally possessed by the element's atoms. For example, there are 4 electron shells in an atom of bromine, so it lies in period 4. Meanwhile, an atom of astatine in period 6 has 6 electron shells. As you read across the table from left to right, the vertical lines of elements are called groups. Elements in a group have the same number of electrons in their outermost electron shells. These are called valence electrons, and they dictate how elements interact. Elements in the same group generally interact with other elements in similar ways. None of the elements greater than atomic number 83 are completely stable. Astatine, with an atomic number of 85, is the only radioactive element in the group. Halogen comes from the ancient Greek halo, meaning salt, and genes, meaning former. Minerals containing chlorine and bromine are found naturally in rock and sea salt. The halogens all have 7 valence electrons, so all the elements in the group have similar chemical properties. Almost all atoms need 8 electrons in their valence shell to be stable. Because they only need 1 more electron to have a complete valence shell, the halogens are extremely electronegative and very reactive. As you move down the group from fluorine to astatine, each element is less reactive than the one before it. This occurs because the attractive force of the positive nucleus becomes weaker as it is blocked by an increasing number of electron shells. Did you know? The halogens are so reactive, some even form compounds with the noble gases. First classified with the discovery of helium in 1895, the noble gases were thought to be completely unreactive until 1962, when xenon difluoride was produced. Fluorine currently is known to react with radon, xenon, krypton, and argon, and attempts are being made to produce compounds with helium and neon.
Humans have been cleaning their teeth for millennia. Archaeologists have found dental floss and toothpick grooves in the teeth of prehistoric people. Today, we use fluoride additives to protect our teeth from decay.
How do you take care of your teeth?
Brush them, obviously.
Flossing's a good idea.
Floss and use mouthwash.
Taking care of my teeth is relatively easy because my father's a dentist.
Just got rid of braces just like that last year, so I use the whitening thing just to keep them white.
Go to the dentist on a regular basis.
Not eating candy.
Avoid sports drinks and sodas.
I take care of my teeth by brushing them twice a day and flossing. Flossing's number 1.
Element number 9 on the periodic table is fluorine. The atomic symbol for fluorine is F. Fluorine is a greenish-yellow, highly toxic gas that smells like bleach. Fluorine gets its name from the Latin word fluere, which means to flow. Fluorine is classified as a halogen. It lies in the periodic table's second row, period 2. Each atom of fluorine consists of a cloud of electrons surrounding a compact nucleus that contains almost all the atom's mass. In the most common form of fluorine, its nucleus has 9 positively charged protons, plus 10 uncharged neutrons. Fluorine has 9 negatively charged electrons to balance its 9 protons. These electrons are found in 2 orbital shells surrounding the nucleus, which can be visualized as being built up from the nearest preceding noble gas, helium. Helium has 2 electrons distributed among 1 orbital shell. Fluorine has 7 more electrons than helium. The first 2 electrons are found in the sphere-shaped 2s orbital shell. The final 5 electrons are distributed among 3 lobe-shaped 2p orbitals. Fluorine is the most reactive of all the elements, and it is never found uncombined in nature. Fluorine will always gain an electron when it interacts with other elements. In this experiment, a stream of pure fluorine gas is directed at a block of sulfur. Fluorine interacts with the sulfur to release energy in the form of heat and a bright light. The sulfur melts into a dark, thick, flowing liquid. The fluorine gas is then aimed at a cotton ball, which instantly bursts into flames. Fluorine compounds are added to water supplies and toothpaste to help prevent tooth decay. Other fluorine compounds are used to make light bulbs and lenses for focusing infrared light. Fluorine was also once widely used in air conditioning and refrigeration systems before scientists discovered that it was damaging to the Earth's ozone. Parents get excited when they first start to come in, and kids get excited when they start to fall out. But one thing remains the same. Teeth are important to human health. You rely on your teeth when you chew food, when you talk, and when you flash your beautiful smile. Brushing, flossing, and regular visits to the dentist will help you care for your teeth properly and ensure good dental health. But other things can protect your teeth as well. One of them is fluoride, which is a compound of the element fluorine. Fluoride compounds occur naturally in rocks and soil, and calcium fluoride is found in all water sources. But fluoride is often chemically added to public drinking water. According to the American Dental Association, fluoride strengthens tooth enamel and reduces plaque's ability to produce acid. It also promotes the repair of tooth enamel that has already been damaged by acids. Topical fluoride is commonly applied to the surface of teeth in the forms of toothpastes, mouth rinses, and gels. They help protect the surface of teeth by making them more resistant to decay. Systemic fluoride comes from what you eat or drink, including the fluoride added to water and dietary supplements. Because the element fluorine has toxic properties that pose health risks, some scientists believe that fluoride should be applied to teeth directly and not be ingested. Some recent studies of systemic fluoride have sparked a debate over the value and safety of adding fluoride to public water supplies. But the one thing that all scientists can agree on is that the use of fluoride in toothpaste and mouth rinses helps strengthen tooth enamel, makes teeth healthier, and gives you a reason to smile and show off your pearly whites. Did you know? Adding fluorine to drinking water is one of the most important measures in dental health. With the advent of this practice in 1950, tooth decay has been reduced by as much as 40%.
Water is essential to life. Our bodies are approximately 60% water, and more than 75% of our planet is covered with water. However, less than 1% is safe to drink.
What things can make water undrinkable?
Oils and chemical waste can pollute the oceans and water all around the earth.
Sewage. Sometimes it's illegal and it's through actual pipes from the factory that dump toxins into the rivers.
Toxic chemicals, nuclear waste, garbage being dumped.
Sometimes, though, it actually goes through the groundwater.
Any kind of fertilizers that are being used on farms.
The acid rain.
I guess just people, like when they're at the beach, they just litter a lot.
Element number 17 on the periodic table is chlorine. The atomic symbol for chlorine is Cl. A greenish-yellow, dense, sharp-smelling gas at room temperature, chlorine is extremely water-soluble and poisonous. Inhaling even a small amount of the gas could prove fatal. Chlorine comes from the Greek word chloros, which means greenish-yellow. Chlorine is classified as a halogen. It lies in the periodic table's third row, period 3. Each atom of chlorine consists of a cloud of electrons surrounding a compact nucleus that contains almost all the atom's mass. In the most common form of chlorine, its nucleus has 17 positively charged protons, plus 18 uncharged neutrons. Chlorine has 17 negatively charged electrons to balance its 17 protons. These electrons are found in 3 orbital shells surrounding the nucleus, which can be visualized as being built up from the nearest preceding noble gas, neon. Neon has 10 electrons distributed in 2 orbital shells. Chlorine has 7 more electrons than neon. The first 2 electrons are found in the sphere-shaped 3s orbital shell. The remaining 5 electrons are distributed among 3 lobe-shaped 3p orbitals. Chlorine is a highly reactive element, and the 7 valence electrons in this third-level shell influence how it interacts with other elements. A test tube is placed in liquid nitrogen. Chlorine gas is released from a pressurized cylinder into the test tube. As the chlorine gas comes into contact with the cold walls of the test tube, it quickly liquefies and then freezes. The test tube filled with solid chlorine is now removed from the nitrogen and placed over a glass bowl. The solid chlorine very rapidly melts and drips into the bowl where it undergoes sublimation, producing a faint yellow-green gas which disperses in the breeze. Chlorine's water solubility makes it very useful in treating drinking water in swimming pools. It is also commonly used as an antiseptic. Sodium chloride, more commonly known as table salt, can be found in every household. Hydrochloric acid is a strong and commercially important acid, as well as being necessary for food digestion. By the end of the 19th century, New York City was on the move. Waves of immigrants from all over the world were converging in Manhattan and reshaping the face of the city. Many of these immigrants were poor and faced harsh discrimination. They crowded together in tenements with horrific sanitation and hoped for a better life for their children. One of the terrors of slum life at this time was the outbreak of dread diseases such as typhoid and cholera. While people from all walks of life fell ill, these diseases particularly targeted the poor. It wasn't until the late 1800s that scientists finally determined that microorganisms known as bacteria caused both cholera and typhoid, and that these bacteria were spread in contaminated water. The discovery spurred a wave of improvements in city sanitation, including the introduction of treated drinking water. In 1908, Jersey City, New Jersey, just across the river from New York, was the first American city to sanitize its drinking water using chlorine. Chlorine is an ideal substance to kill microorganisms. It easily dissolves in water and does not dissipate, killing existent bacteria and preventing their regrowth. The advent of chlorinated drinking water, coupled with an overall improvement in sanitation practices, led to a drastic drop in the occurrence of waterborne diseases. By the 1930s, cholera and typhoid were virtually eliminated in areas with consistent water sanitation. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, water still presents a danger. In underdeveloped countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, epidemics of cholera and typhoid still occur. Even in the United States, unprecedented disaster can threaten the water supply. Today, we know that just because water looks clean doesn't mean it's safe. Thanks to chlorine, we can make sure that the water from the faucet won't make us sick. Did you know? Water in a healthy diet doesn't just come from the tap. For an average adult, food provides about 20% of a person's total water intake.
Every year, roughly 3,500 people die in house fires. If you wake up to a fire, you may be blinded, disoriented, and unable to find your way around your home. Each household should have a fire escape plan and designate a meeting place outside.
What are some things that can cause fires?
A lot of forest fires are maybe not as much started by campfires, but by lightning.
When people are cooking and they forget about it and it's on the stove, it could start a fire. Some things that could cause fires are matches.
I see people throwing cigarettes on the ground all the time.
A little kid or someone playing with matches, unwatched by an adult.
Electrical fires can spark in houses if it's like a particularly old house.
An electrical spark in a basement.
A lot of the wiring could be either frayed or ready to fail.
Even using a magnifying glass with light could really spark a fire.
If you have one short circuit or one spark, it could ignite a fire.
Element number 35 on the periodic table is bromine. The atomic symbol for bromine is Br. Bromine is a heavy red-brown liquid with a strong odor and is the only non-metallic element that is a liquid at room temperature. Bromine gets its name from the Greek word bromos, which means stench. Bromine is classified as a halogen. It lies in the periodic table's fourth row, period 4. Each bromine atom consists of a cloud of electrons surrounding a compact nucleus that contains almost all the atom's mass. In the most common form of bromine, its nucleus has 35 positively charged protons, plus 45 uncharged neutrons. Bromine has 35 negatively charged electrons to balance its 35 protons. These electrons are found in orbital shells surrounding the nucleus, which can be visualized as being built up from the nearest preceding noble gas, argon. Argon has 18 electrons distributed among 3 orbital shells. Bromine has 17 more electrons than argon. The first 2 electrons are found in the sphere-shaped 4s orbital shell. The next 10 electrons fill 5 clover-shaped 3d orbitals. And the final 5 electrons are distributed among 3 lobe-shaped 4p orbitals. Since the electrons in the 3d orbital are at a lower energy state than those in the 4s and 4p orbitals, only the 7 valence electrons in this 4th level shell influence how bromine interacts with other elements. In this experiment, bromine is taken from a beaker and dripped onto a dish. At room temperature, it begins to evaporate, with a heavy reddish vapor rising from the dish. Notice that the demonstrator wears rubber gloves to avoid coming in direct contact with the bromine, which can cause burns to the skin and irritations to the throat and eyes. The bromine is then dripped onto a wooden surface and begins to slowly evaporate until it disappears. Bromine compounds are used in water purification and in creating fumigants and fire retardant materials. Silver bromide, a chemical used in photography, accounts for the largest use of bromine today. Fire has many moods, many disguises, and many ways to kill. Every fire department is all too familiar with the risks, and the team of firefighters works hard to prepare for their next call. In the past, a firefighter's arsenal consisted mainly of water and courage. Today, science is shedding new light on fire's beautiful but deadly dynamic, using technology and chemistry to add to the firefighter's arsenal. Human civilization owes its existence to fire. In its heat, we forge tools and power technology. Our constant companion, fire lives like a tamed beast in our homes, lulling us into a false sense of security. Given the chance, it reverts to its deadly ways. The many faces of fire are all born of three humble ingredients: heat, fuel, and oxygen. Take away any one of these, and the fire dies. Heat releases gases from the potential fuel source into the air. The liberated gases combine with oxygen and create a volatile chemical cocktail ready to ignite with a single spark. Once the fire is burning, particles of carbon light up as they release energy. This is what we see as flames. The key to firefighting is to neutralize the three basic ingredients of heat, oxygen, and fuel quickly and safely. It's all hands on deck as the first call of the day comes through. From the moment the alarm is received, the pressure is on to get to the site of the fire as quickly as possible. For firefighters, entering the hungry jaws of the beast is all in a day's work. Equipped with guts and determination, they have science and technology on their side. Brominated flame retardant, known as BFR, is the first line of defense. Brominated compounds help protect electronics, furniture, and a firefighter's protective clothes. Brominated flame retardants are incredibly effective at fire prevention.
3, 2, 1.
They reduce the combustibility of everyday items and hinder the spread of the fire to provide valuable time for escape. The bromine in BFRs disrupts the chain reaction that keeps fire burning, effectively extinguishing the flame. While materials protected with bromine may still suffer heat damage, it is the flame that is so important to the spread of fire. By interacting with vital flame components, the brominated flame retardants quench a fire's flames and stamp out its spread. Brominated flame retardants buy precious moments that could mean the difference between life and death. You've been given all the information. Now it's your turn to discuss the questions. Take a moment to talk about the following.
What properties do the halogens share?
What makes the halogen so reactive?
If you'd like to learn more about what you've just seen, go online or check out these books at your local library.
As you watch the second half of this program, keep these questions in mind.
What is the function of the digestive system?
What role does hydrochloric acid play in the digestive system?
Every time you eat dinner or a favorite snack, you kickstart a chain of chemical reactions. Digestion turns that red apple you had for lunch into fuel to keep your body running and renewing.
How can bad eating contribute to stomach aches?
In the movie Super Size Me, the man was eating fast food every day, and it had the same effect as it would if he was an alcoholic drinking every day.
I just can't eat sweet things in the morning. I know a lot of kids like to eat donuts and things, but I can't do that or else I feel totally sick.
You can also get cavities because when you eat a lot of sugar, the cavities rot your teeth.
Usually I can just eat a lot and I won't get a stomach ache, but every once in a while I'll just eat too much because I see all the food and I'm like, oh my God, look at it all there, I just have to eat it.
Digestion. It seems so simple. You eat food and your body breaks it down to nourish you. But along the way, from your mouth to your gut, anything can go wrong. From heartburn to ulcers to food poisoning. Digestion is the process of breaking down food into nutrients that the body can absorb. Whatever you swallow travels down your esophagus and into your stomach, where digestive juices begin attacking it. The liver and pancreas contribute digestive juices, which flow into your small intestine. Here, food is broken down into individual molecules that can be absorbed into your bloodstream. What remains is pushed up and around the large intestine and finally out the anus. It is a journey that can take from 20 hours to several days. Most of the time, our digestive system works flawlessly, churning food through its passageways day in and day out. But at some point in our lives, something goes wrong, and we suffer a stomachache.
The stomachache is a vague term for any sort of discomfort that occurs in the belly, which really covers anywhere from the low part of the chest down to above your legs. Usually it's something very innocuous.
A stomachache can be nagging, inconvenient, embarrassing, and extremely painful. Whether it's from constipation, diarrhea, gas, or nausea.
Nausea is the uncomfortable feeling that you really need to vomit. It can be caused by a number of different conditions, including common viral illnesses of the stomach flu, or from motion sickness. But in general, it's not harmful and it will simply pass.
Gas and even gas pains are normal byproducts of digestion. And belching or passing gas up to 20 times a day is normal.
If you have excessive gas, it probably means that you're eating on the run, you're eating very quickly, and you're swallowing a lot of air. So the first thing is to eat slowly and carefully. The second thing is be aware of foods that contain gas in them, such as carbonated beverages, and try to minimize those. The third source of gas is high fiber foods. If you're considering increasing the amount of fiber, you want to do it gradually, because if you do it all at once, your bacteria will become overwhelmed and produce a whole lot of gas.
When food moves too quickly through your digestive tract and less liquid is absorbed by the large intestine, you get diarrhea. If it moves too slowly, so more water is absorbed, that's constipation. Anti-diarrheal drugs slow the movement of food through the intestines or regulate the action of intestinal muscles. Laxatives treat constipation by softening feces or by stimulating intestinal muscles. At least once a month, more than 60 million Americans suffer from acid indigestion, also known as heartburn. Heartburn occurs when acid flows up from the stomach into the esophagus, causing pain and discomfort. Causes of heartburn include overeating and alcohol. Heartburn medications include antacids, which relieve pain by neutralizing stomach acid, and H2 blockers, other over-the-counter medications that reduce the amount of acid the stomach produces. Both can be quite effective, but sometimes heartburn goes beyond the ordinary.
Try to imagine your worst heartburn and magnify that. 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up with your stomach in a whirl with acid. It's something boiling in your stomach.
Robin Clifford, a tech support engineer and film critic, was suffering from gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, an extreme form of heartburn. Between the esophagus and the stomach is a valve called the lower esophageal sphincter. Normally it opens to let food down, then closes so food can't get back up. But with GERD, a weakness in the sphincter allows stomach contents to flow back into the esophagus.
The acid in the stomach burns the lining of the esophagus because it can stay there for quite some time and causes pain.
And that burning feeling, often called heartburn or acid indigestion, is what patients with GERD feel.
But GERD is not your garden variety heartburn. It occurs much more frequently, at least twice a week. It may involve regurgitating stomach contents into the mouth, difficult or painful swallowing, and even chest pain. GERD can also cause chronic inflammation, which in rare cases can result in cancer of the esophagus.
Early on, when I first started having the problem, I was taking over-the-counter things just to kind of keep things calm.
After suffering for years, Clifford graduated from over-the-counter to prescription medications, but nothing stopped the GERD.
And it got to the point where I sometimes wouldn't even be able to eat a meal because the burning in the stomach. Nothing would put out the fire.
After medications failed to cure his GERD, Clifford finally opted for surgery with Dr. Desmond Burkett of the Leahy Clinic near Boston. The operation strengthens the lower esophageal sphincter by wrapping the top of the stomach around it, creating a collar. Now, when there's pressure in the stomach that would have made food reflux through the sphincter, the collar squeezes the sphincter shut. Recovery is remarkably quick. Most patients go home after only one night, as Clifford did.
I'm amazed by the recovery process here. I felt great. I didn't have any heartburn whatsoever. Went back to a normal routine. Didn't eat normally, and that's the longest part, is to get back to a normal diet.
But after only 6 weeks on a limited diet, pepperoni pizza doesn't give Clifford the slightest twinge.
The results of this operation are excellent. 95% of people immediately lose their heartburn and reflux and need to take no more medications at all.
After 10 years of having daily acid attacks, I have none now. 0 problems.
While the hydrochloric acid can be a problem for some people, it does serve a purpose. The acid is a first line of defense against harmful microbes that we ingest with our food. But sometimes the acid isn't enough. Foodborne bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli cause as many as 5,000 deaths and 76 million illnesses each year. Chicken is often contaminated with Salmonella, bacteria that cause diarrhea, fever, and abdominal cramps. Salmonella infects almost 1.5 million Americans each year. Campylobacter hides out in raw or undercooked poultry. Even 1 drop of juice from raw chicken can cause infection. Then there's a form of E. coli found in meats and produce that can sometimes be lethal. And there are other more insidious bacteria that flourish in the acidic environment in our stomachs. Bacteria have recently been linked with ulcers, once thought to be caused by stress and stomach acid.
It felt like somebody was just ripping me apart or stabbing me with knives in my stomach. It was just an unbelievable pain. And sometimes it got to the point where I would just not be able to breathe. I'd hold my breath, hoping that the pain would stop.
Dee Hill is one of 25 million Americans who suffer from ulcers. Painful sores or holes in the lining of the stomach or the duodenum, part of the small intestine.
Well, an ulcer comes in different degrees, and if it gets really big, it has a potential for bleeding, or worse, it can perforate. You actually get a hole through the stomach lining so that acid and food can go straight into the abdomen, and if you have that happen, it requires immediate operation.
Hill has suffered from ulcers since she was a teenager. but even with medication, her condition never improved. For more than 15 years, she endured agonizing attacks and nearly constant soreness.
It's very painful. You have constant pain in your stomach, and it's more like a throbbing, almost like a toothache, a really bad toothache in your stomach.
About 1 million Americans are hospitalized for ulcers each year, and some 6,500 die. Until recently, doctors thought they knew what caused ulcers, but they were wrong.
50, maybe 100 years, people had thought that ulcers were caused by acid or by stress.
Acid and stress can make ulcers worse, but they're not the main cause. It wasn't until 1982 that Australian doctors discovered the chief culprit, a bacterium called Helicobacter pylori, or H. pylori. For years, many doctors, including Hills, refused to believe in the bacterium's role. But when Hill learned about H. pylori, she leaped into action.
I had read an article in Reader's Digest about bacteria and ulcers, and I approached my physician about that, and he didn't want anything to do with it. I guess he didn't believe in it at the time.
By searching the internet, Hill found a doctor who had been on the forefront of H. pylori research almost since its discovery. Dr. David Cave of St. Elizabeth Medical Center in Boston.
Where do you get that sensation?
The sensation is
Around that.
right, the trunk, the whole trunk is really sore.
Dr. Cave discovered that Dee had not just one, but 2 ulcers, and H. pylori was present.
Can you give me some idea how severe it is? Does it stop you doing what you're doing?
Yes, it does stop me. It stopped me completely.
To kill the bacteria, Dr. Cave treated Hill with antibiotics. But her H. pylori didn't just roll over and die.
I had 5 treatments, and I was still in a lot of pain, and I got to the point where my stomach was spasming. So I called Dr. Cave, and he goes, "Wait, let's try one more thing."
Because of my research interests, I was able to actually go down into a stomach with a scope, take a little biopsy, grow the bug out, test it for its bacterial resistance to antibiotics.
And he said, we biopsied your tissues, we examined them in the lab, and we're going to develop a cocktail just for you.
And I could design a specific group of antibiotics that I was able to successfully treat her.
He gave me some prescriptions, went home, took my pills for approximately 2 weeks, 14 days, and I've been pain-free ever since.
She hasn't had any abdominal pain for the last 3 years. I mean, it's changed her life.
According to Dr. Cave, a course of 2 antibiotics plus an acid-suppressing agent usually gets rid of 85% of ulcers. Dee's case was unusually difficult, so victory was especially sweet.
It's great. It's wonderful. I don't wake up in the middle of the night crying. I'm pain-free, and it's because I didn't give up and that I trusted myself, and I felt that possibly I could get cured. I feel like a new person.
While stomach acids can cause many digestive problems, there are some problems that are still a mystery. 33-year-old Scott Johnson is a New Hampshire farmer who understands adversity. Johnson has Crohn's disease, which can inflame parts of the digestive tract from the mouth to the anus. There is no known cause and no known cure.
I got Crohn's when I was 11. Basically, any food passes through. It's almost as though you're trying to pass something through an open wound. It can be excruciating, especially for an 11-year-old kid.
A doctor discovered that his Crohn's disease was focused in his small intestine. To reduce the inflammation, he prescribed steroids.
Where I was not a terrific student in school, just as soon as I was given the medications, I went to straight A's. So just as soon as they had given me something to relieve the pain, it changed my entire life.
But steroids stunted his growth. To give him a chance to grow, doctors stopped the steroids. The trade-off was surgery that removed part of his small intestine. This X-ray shows that inflammation from Crohn's disease has made this section of Johnson's intestine much narrower than this normal part. If it obstructs the flow of nutrients too severely, the narrow section must be removed. Johnson's surgery gave him 5 years of remission, which ended in the emergency room when inflammation penetrated a blood vessel.
In 1986, I hemorrhaged in my intestine, and I lost a significant amount of blood. I had 3 things of whole blood coming into me under pressure, and I guess I was losing it. You know, I was kind of slipping away. I had asked the nurse if I was going to die, basically, and she said that she didn't know. But as far as my point of view, once I saw my mom, I said maybe I'm not ready to go quite yet. So at that point I prayed to God for the bleeding to stop.
The bleeding stopped, and Johnson made it through another 5 years before he needed surgery again, then 8 more years before his 3rd surgery. But by then, he was running out of options. He couldn't have section after section of small intestine removed without becoming malnourished, and he was reacting badly to his medications.
Okay, can I just have you lie back?
Sure.
Then Scott found Dr. Bruce Sands, a prominent gastroenterologist at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston.
Any tender areas where I'm tapping?
In my case, my insurance didn't cover going to Dr. Sands, and I had to make the decision, do I go to the best or do I get 100% coverage? Yet that decision has changed my life.
Scott's story is a very, very long story, unfortunately. By the time he had seen me as an adult for the first time, he'd already had 3 bowel resections. This is very concerning because, of course, you need your small bowel to absorb your nutrients.
Treating severe Crohn's disease is a juggling act with a variety of medications and surgical options as the juggling pins. Fortunately, there's a drug called infliximab. Infliximab works by binding to a key protein that causes inflammation and then neutralizing it.
I had 3 surgeries already. I'm still a young man. If it can keep me from having surgeries, my quality of life and my productivity level as a person will become greater.
What the patient experiences oftentimes is almost immediately after the infusion, they may feel generally better. They feel more energetic and have a better sense of well-being. Within a few days to certainly by 2 weeks, the patient may, if they're going to respond, have a complete turnaround of their disease.
The turnaround lasts only about 6 weeks, and many patients don't respond at all. But when it works, infliximab can seem remarkable.
Hey, Billy.
After the 3rd infusion, I started noticing that I had a higher energy level. And with Crohn's, one of the classic symptoms on a daily basis is fatigue. You're always fighting for that extra amount of energy, which is huge. I mean, that's the biggest thing there is energy level. Yeah, that makes me very optimistic.
Dr. Sands can't predict how long it will ward off more surgeries. In the meantime, Scott Johnson intends to take full advantage of his new lease on life. While we're traveling down the digestive tract today, hordes of tourists are traveling around the globe. But travel means eating the local food, maybe drinking the local water, and you know what that can lead to. Jim Cram certainly does.
I've got some kind of a parasite that caused me to be sick. Just severe nausea, severe diarrhea, and bouts of nausea came up. It was very quick. And out of bed, run to the toilet. Take care of what you had to take care of.
Cram is a cameraman and is about to leave on another adventure, this time to the wilds of South America.
I'm going back down to Brazil, going into Manaus, and traveling up the Amazon. There's a lot of concerns about what you could possibly catch there.
That's why he's come to see Dr. Winnie Uwe, director of the Leahy Clinic Travel and Tropical Medicine Clinic.
Traveler's diarrhea is the most common ailment to assail anyone who travels, primarily, obviously, to developing countries. Anywhere up from 30 to 80% of people, when they go to tropical or subtropical countries, will have either one or more episodes of traveler's diarrhea. The most common bacterium to cause traveler's diarrhea is something called enterotoxigenic E. coli. You will go to the bathroom a lot. Depending on the organism, you may have nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. You may have a real sense of urgency of going to the bathroom, blood in the stool, fever.
No one knows what purpose diarrhea and vomiting serve. Even though they may rid the body of some toxins, there is no evidence this relieves illness. Travelers are vulnerable to any number of intestinal invaders, including the sometimes deadly cholera bacterium found in contaminated food and water. A traveler's best defensive weapons are inoculations tailored to the region being visited, and knowledge of what to take along and what to do when abroad. Travel clinics and some websites are good sources of this information. So what preventative measures does the director of the clinic take when she travels to exotic lands?
I try to avoid drinking any water that I may not think is safe. I use straws. I bring the straws with me because then you don't really have to use any kind of drinking utensil. I try to avoid the ice, and I don't eat custards and dairy products and so forth that may have been left at room temperature. I try to eat the food that's cooked but hot when it gets to me.
If you follow Dr. Uwe's advice the next time you travel, chances are you won't have to look up the local word for diarrhea in your phrase book. Happy trails. The digestive tract is an amazing length of plumbing. It takes the food you eat, chops it into smaller pieces, and converts it into the fuel that keeps you alive. What you can do to help keep your digestive system in shape is eat a balanced diet, exercise, and take digestive symptoms seriously.
You've been given all the information. Now it's your turn to discuss the questions. Take a moment to talk about the following.
What is the function of the digestive system?
What role does hydrochloric acid play in the digestive system?
We hope you've enjoyed this assignment discovery analysis of the halogens. If you'd like to learn more about what you've just seen, go online or check out these books at your local library.